Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're listening to this. David Creel, certified Ziegler master coach, with a new episode. If you notice, it's not like a regular one where I'm not coaching one. This is just a solo episode. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Okay, so years ago, Zig Ziglar came out with the Wheel of Life assessment. And the Wheel of Life assessment is the best tool that I'm aware of where you can find out where you currently are in the 7 areas of life that really matter. You know, mental, spiritual, physical, family, financial, personal, and career. And I would challenge you to find an area of life that's not one of those 7, but I digress. See, because for you to live your best life, you need to know 2 things: where you currently are and where you want to be, or where you want to go. Because if you don't know where you are, then you don't really know where you want to go. Because, let's say I live in Dallas, which I don't, but let's just say I did, and I wanted to go to LA. I would go west. But if I'm actually in Hawaii and not Dallas, and I'm still trying to go to LA, I could go west, but it's going to take me a whole lot longer to get to LA instead of just going east. So it's important to know where you currently are. Equally important is to know, where do you want to go? Imagine going to your local airport and you go up to the ticket agent and you say, I like that plane right there. I want to go there. Where do you want to go? I don't really care. I want to go wherever that plane's going. Well, they're not going to give you a ticket because you want to know where you want to go. So once you have where you are and where you want to go, then it gets fun. So the Wheel of Life. The Wheel of Life, like I said, is the best tool I'm aware of that tells you where you currently are. This isn't like right or wrong, and there's no judgment, and it's not going to be on a test later. But if you answer the assessment honestly, get you a pretty good idea of where you are. Okay, so the Wheel of Life looks like this. Okay, so you've got mental, personal, career, family, physical, spiritual, and financial. Okay, and the point of that is you take this and you rate yourself 1 to 10. 10 being awesome and 1 being terrible or not so awesome. Okay. So today, this is going to be over the next few months. This is going to be part 1 of 7, where we're going to talk about this Wheel of Life. We're going to talk about each spoke for an episode over the next several weeks. So of the 7 areas of life that truly matter: mental, spiritual, physical, family, financial, personal, and career, there's 3 that are kind of like your foundation pieces. Not that they're all not important, but some have a little bit higher value than the others. Okay. So what you do on this, you get this and you fill this out. And then you go to the next page and you plot it on the wheel. And then you connect the dots to see if there's a flat spot or something that you're missing. Now, for those of you on the podcast, this is audio. This will be the audio. For those who are on YouTube, you can see this. But picture, if you're for the podcast listeners, think of a wheel. And there's 7 spokes of the wheel, and it's 1 to 10. And you rate yourself 1 to 10, and then you connect the dots and make a wheel, make your own wheel. Now, you want these to be borderline 11 in every category. But that's probably not going to be the case if you're being realistic with yourself. So what we're going to do in this episode, you know how I talked about a second ago, there's a foundation, like a base level. The 3 most important of the 7 are mental, spiritual, and physical, because we're mental, spiritual, and physical human beings. Now, of those, and this is going to be the topic of the episode today, the most important of the 7, the 3, mental, spiritual, physical, are more important than the other 4. Not that the other 4 aren't important. It's just these are more important. And of those 3, mental, spiritual, and physical, the mental is the most important. So we're going to talk about the mental spoke today. So if you had to rate yourself 1 to 10, 10 being the best you could ever hope and dream for, and 1 being, let's just say, way less than ideal, what would you rate yourself? Again, there's no right or wrong answers, and it's not a place of judgment. But where are you in the mental spoke, in the mental area of your life? You know, do you tend to see things on the positive side, or do you tend to see things on the negative side? Do you see it as a glass half full, glass half empty? Do you think, bad things just follow you around? Or do you think that you're not good enough or smart enough, or, I need to learn some more stuff before I can help someone, or whatever? Let me tell you why the mental is the most important. Because everything begins and ends in the mind. Everything seen and unseen, or to be seen, started in the mind of one individual. So a great story I heard about this is, we've all heard of Disney World or Disneyland. They're a fairly big deal. The story says that Walt Disney died before Disney World opened. And at the ribbon cutting for Walt Disney, for Disney World, a reporter asked Mrs. Walt Disney, whatever his wife's name was, "Aren't you sad that Walt wasn't here to see the finished product of Disney World?" And the story says that Mrs. Walt Disney said, "What are you talking about? Of course he saw the finished product. Because if he didn't see it in his mind, we wouldn't be standing here about to open up Disney World." So something to think about. One of my favorite quotations about the mental spoke from Zig Ziglar, the legend known as Zig Ziglar. "You are what you are and where you are because of what has gone into your mind. You can change what you are, and you can change where you are simply by changing what goes into your mind." Something to think about. I'm going to say it again. You are what you are and where you are because of what has gone into your mind. You can change what you are, and you can change where you are simply by changing what goes into your mind. So what are you filling your mind with? Are you filling your mind with the good, clean, powerful, positive? Or are you filling your mind with the not so clean, not so powerful, not so positive, not so encouraging material? You know, a lot of people have a poor self-image of themselves. Or another way to saying that is they lack self-confidence. So what I've been told and what I've heard, which I'm beginning to really think is true, the key to building your self-confidence is keeping the promises you make to yourself. Isn't that interesting? You see, because when you keep a promise to yourself, you're what's known as a person who keeps their word. But how many times in life are we so busy running around trying to help everyone else with what they want, or building their dream, where we put our own dreams and hopes and wishes and desires on the back burner because we don't feel like we're enough? Ouch. It's getting real around here. Well, I'm here to tell you, you're enough. You're enough just the way you are. Now, that doesn't mean you don't try to improve or better yourself, but you're enough just the way you are. So how many times before you go to bed are we mindlessly scrolling on social media? Now, I've done this before. I'm guilty. It's not like I have this thing, whipped. But we're mindlessly scrolling social media. And all we see on social media is everyone else's highlight reels. It's the perfect family. We just had Easter a couple days ago. So everyone has their best outfits on. Everyone's matching. Everyone's hair's done. Well, some people's hair's done. I don't have that issue, but you know what I'm talking about. And we think to ourselves, man, if I could just be like that person or this couple or whatever. And then comparison sets in. And you're like, oh, I don't have what they have. Now, what you probably didn't see on social media is the knockdown, drag out fight they had 10 minutes before the picture because someone was running late or didn't wear the right shirt or have different color socks on or whatever. But it's been said that comparison is the thief of joy. Because what it does is it doesn't make you grateful for what you do have. I mean, think about it. And this isn't judgment because I'm guilty of this, but think about it this way, a different mental shift. You're more than likely looking at social media, probably on your cell phone, which requires money. And you're also able to get on there because you more than likely have Wi-Fi, which also costs money. You're more than likely also sleeping in a warm bed with a roof over your head. And you've got 1 or 4 cars in the driveway or the garage. And you've got a closet full of clothes. And you probably have a refrigerator that's full of food and a pantry that's full of food and at least one freezer that's also full of food. And for the most part, all your bills are paid. But the flip side of this, there's some people that don't even have a house or have a pair of shoes or whatever. So, gratitude is important. It's been said, gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. But when you're on social media and you're just scrolling through and scrolling through, you're looking at other people's highlight reels. So you don't compare your highlight reel to their highlight reel to your low light reel, or something that doesn't make the cut of, being on Sports Center or the late news or whatever for your highlights. But it is true. What you put into your mind is what you're going to get out. One of the things that this talks about right here on the mental spoke, you've got rate yourself 1 to 10. 10 being awesome and 1 being less than ideal or terrible. Attitude, intelligence, formal education, continuing education and training, creative imagination, inspirational reading, inquisitive mind, self-image, enthusiasm. Automobile University. Automobile University is simply whenever you're driving somewhere, instead of listening to the weather or sports or talk radio or the local drive time or afternoon show, maybe put in something that encourages you or uplifts you or motivates you. And turn your car or vehicle into a university where you're learning as you drive. But the mental is so important because it goes back to that self-confidence thing. You see, if you struggle with self-confidence, and a lot of people do, if you struggle with self-confidence, that makes you, quote, normal. So join the crowd. But whenever you don't keep the promises you make to yourself, that self-image or self-confidence you have in yourself takes a little bit down. The best example I can probably think of off the top of my head is, let's say you get up in the morning with the aid of an electronic rooster, also known as an alarm clock. A lot of people love the snooze button. So if you have an iPhone, because a lot of people, we have to sleep with our phones right next to our bed because we can't miss anything because FOMO is very real. The alarm goes off, you hit your snooze button. Well, if you have an iPhone, that's 8 minutes. So I was in a coaching conversation a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I don't like waking up in the morning. I said, that's interesting. I said, you don't like waking up? Like, there's only one option. You either wake up or you don't wake up. That's it. He goes, no, I want to wake up. He goes, I just don't want to get up. I went, oh. I said, oh, now that's a different discussion. But if you think about it, if you're not a morning person and you don't like getting up in the morning, all the snooze button allows you to do is get up more than once. Isn't that interesting? So, see, because you don't decide to get up when the alarm goes off. You decided that the night before when you set the alarm. So perhaps you get an old school alarm clock and you put it on the other side of the room, and that thing's not going to be quiet until you get up. Well, now you're making a conscious choice. Am I going to lay back down or am I going to get up? You already determined when you want to get up, so just get up. And if you're going to get up, and if you're allowed to wake up, might as well get up like it's on purpose. You know what I'm saying? So the mental is so critical, because whenever you start keeping the promises you make to yourself, that self-image and self-belief and self-confidence starts going the opposite direction. It starts going up instead of going down. And all the negative influences of, social media and cancel culture and all this other stuff. The mental. It's been said that the most valuable piece of real estate on earth is the 6 inches between your ears. Because everything starts in the mind. Everything starts in the mind. That's why it's so important to guard what you see, what you hear, where your environment is, your friends, all that has to do with the mental. That's why it's the most important. The mental spoke. It's of the utmost importance, because if you can change the image you have of yourself, and you can change the picture that you have of yourself using the mind, then you'll start not saying, I'm not good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, whatever. You'll say, I can find somebody to help. And then your life changes. Because as Zig Ziglar said, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what it is that they want. But it's also true because it's also so important, because when you start changing the picture you have of you, you start to speak to yourself differently. Because what you say and what you believe about you is way more important than what everyone else says and believes about you. So something to think about. The mental spoke it's the most important, because everything begins and starts in the mind. So how's your mental life? As Zig Ziglar said, do you need a checkup from the neck up? Yeah. So whenever those, I've got one last story. Whenever those thoughts and issues come into your own mind about, you're not good enough or whatever. Story goes, somebody got fired from their job, and they went to the beach to basically lick their wounds. And while they were there, they got into yoga. And they got so involved in it that they were going to become like a yoga instructor or a coach or yoga teacher or whatever they're called. Yogi, I think, is what the actual term is. Don't quote me if that's not right. Anyways, they asked the yoga instructor, I don't know enough to teach people yoga. And the instructor told this person something that changed their life. The instructor told them, some people want a yoga instructor who can put their ankles behind their ears. And some want a yoga instructor who's just a little bit further down the road than they are. So you're one of those two. You're a little bit further down the road than somebody else, or you're advanced and you know a lot more than other people. But you know what that makes you? Enough. So, hope this was helpful today. Again, this is one of 7 of the Wheel of Life. Over the next few months, these are going to be coming out. And think about how can, say, whatever you rated yourself earlier on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say you gave yourself a 5.5, 5.5. I'm just making this up. Obviously, I don't know you and you don't know me, but let's say that's the case. The goal is not to turn a 5.5 into an 8 immediately. The purpose is, say you gave yourself a 5.5. Who would you need to be to turn that 5.5 into a 6? Because as Zig Ziglar said, you have to be before you can do, and do before you can have. You have to be the right kind of person mentally, spiritually, physically, in order to do the right things in the right way so that you can have what you want. You got to be before you can do, and do before you can have. So if you rated yourself a 5.5, continually ask yourself, who would I need to be to turn that 5.5 into a 6? Because you can't go from a 5.5 to an 8. You go 5.5 to 6, then you go 6.5, then you go 7, then you go 7.5, then you go 8, then you go 8.5, then you go 9, then you go all the way up the scale. Because that way you're chunking it down and you don't get overwhelmed, where the gap's too big to go from 5.5 to 8 immediately. But if you give it enough time and stretch out the timeline, then you wake up 2 or 3 months from now and now you're an 8, or you're a 6.5, or you're a 7, or you're a 5.8. But here's the thing about the wheel of life. Let's say you improved every spoke. You focus on it for 1 month. So let's say on the wheel, say on the mental, you got yourself a 5.5. So you're sitting about right here. But what if you worked on 1 spoke a month? A year from now, you wouldn't even recognize yourself. Now, you wouldn't be able to go, because there's 7 spokes and there's 12 months in the year. So you wouldn't actually be able to go 2 times around the wheel in a year. But, you probably could if you worked on, say, a spoke for, say, 3 weeks. You could get all the way around the wheel twice, and you would be unrecognizable. You'd be so much better than you are now. And you may be flying and you may be awesome. Maybe you can do a little bit better. A little bit better over time. A 1% improvement over time makes a big difference. And if you don't think a 1% improvement is a big deal, given enough time, say you're in LA and you're going to fly to New York on a nonstop flight, and the flight is off 1 degree or 1% the whole way. Do you end up in New York? No. You end up in Virginia, which is not New York. So that 1% difference all the time, over time, makes a massive difference. Massive. So start catching yourself. How do you talk to yourself? How do you encourage yourself? What do you say to yourself? Either verbally or internally, externally or internally. And start guarding what goes into your mind. Because I'm going to repeat it again. You are what you are and where you are because of what has gone into your mind. You can change what you are, and you can change where you are simply by changing what goes into your mind. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Again, it's going to be one of 7 series coming out over the next several weeks. Little teaser alert. So we got the foundation is mental, spiritual, physical. The next time I have one of these solo episodes, it's going to be about the spiritual spoke, because the fact of the matter is you're going to be dead a whole lot longer than you're going to be alive. And the time to get that addressed is before you die. And spoiler alert, you're going to die. Sorry. If no one's ever told you that before, hate to break the news to you. So the time to get that where you're going to spend eternity, that part needs to be taken care of before you die, because then it's too late. So thanks for joining me. Rate yourself 1 to 10 on the mental spoke. And if you go to my website, davidcreel.com, you can get one of these. You can print it out and do it yourself. And then that gets you where you currently are. Because until you know where you are, you can't really determine effectively where you want to go. You'll have a great day. Talk to you soon.